Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talkn Tennis. I'm your host, Chris, and if you're listening to this, you're probably still recovering from the absolute chaos we just witnessed in Sydney. If this is your first time here, welcome to the only tennis podcast that isn't afraid to call a choke a joke. We don't do PR-safe commentary here. We do raw, unfiltered analysis of what actually happened on the court. For the regulars, look, I know, I hear you. I tipped Zizou Bergs, and he made me look like an asshole. We're going to address that car crash in a minute, but for the record, I'm now the Wawrinka call, so put some respect on the name. Today, we are dissecting the wreckage and the glory from the United Cup. We're unpacking a China versus Belgium tie that had everything from 100 km per hour forehands to tactical toilet breaks. And we're heading to Perth, where Stan Wawrinka proved that class is permanent and heat stroke is temporary. But we aren't just living in the past, we're also looking ahead to day 3, where the matchups are getting spicy. I've dissected the order of play. I've got my predictions locked and loaded, hopefully more Stan and less Zizou this time. And I'll tell you exactly where the value is and who is on upset alerts. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, and plenty of ugly to get through. So let's get into it. We're going to begin by reviewing Greece versus Japan. And we have Maria Sakkari defeating Naomi Osaka 6-4, 6-2. Look, we need to talk about what happened here in the Greece-Japan tie, because if you were expecting a blockbuster from Naomi Osaka, you got a bust instead. Maria Sakkari didn't just win this match, she dismantled Osaka in what can only be described as a total reality check for the Japanese star. I got this one wrong, which makes it 0 from 3 if anyone is still counting. I was expecting a close one here, but Sakkari made Osaka look second-rate. If we're honest, this was a pathetic showing from Osaka on a surface that she's supposed to own. The stats are a horror show. Naomi's greatest weapon, her serve, completely deserted her. She was throwing in double faults at the worst possible times and won half of her first serve points. But the real issue was the movement. Naomi looked like she was playing in quicksand. Sakkari, who's basically a human firecracker, realised very early on that if she just kept the ball deep and moved Naomi side to side, the errors would come pouring out. And they did. Osaka looked disinterested, sluggish, and frankly, like she hadn't bothered to scout Sakkari's game at all. Sakkari deserves credit for being a professional and staying disciplined, but this was more about Osaka's collapse. Naomi's footwork was non-existent, and her body language was even worse. If she's planning on making a deep run in the Australian Open, playing like this, she may as well book her flight home now. It was clinical, no-nonsense win for Greece, and a massive disappointing red flag for Japan. Moving on to the men's tie. Stefanos Tsitsipas kept things simple and got the job done, defeating Shintaro Mochizuki 6-3, 6-4. He didn't need to be spectacular, he just needed to be professional, and he was. Tsitsipas used his serve as a shield all night. He won 67% of his first serve points and never really gave the young Japanese player a look in. Mochizuki is quick and he scrambled well, but he simply doesn't have the weight of shot to hurt Tsitsipas on these fast hard courts. Every time Mochizuki left a ball short, Stefanos stepped in and dictated with that big forehand. It was a clinical performance with zero drama. Tsitsipas broke once in each set, protecting his own delivery with ease. Greece went on to win the doubles. Solid start from Team Greece. Now, let's move on to Belgium versus China, and boy, this was a cracker. So first, we have Elise Mertens, who defeated Zhu Lin 6-2, 6-2. Mertens came out and did exactly what she's paid to do. Beat the players she's supposed to beat without breaking a sweat. We can keep this short because this match was 6-2, 6-2. Routine, clinical, boring, maybe, but effective. Zhu Lin looked like she was hitting with the wall. Mertens broke her serve 6 times. Zhu is ranked outside the top 150 right now, and frankly, it showed. She had no weapons to hurt Mertens, no plan B, and to be honest, barely a plan A. Mertens just stood on the baseline, moved her around, and waited for the inevitable error. It was professional from the Belgian. Now, let's discuss the men's tie. Right, I own this. I tipped Zizou Bergs. I looked at the stats. I looked at Zhang's shoulder injury layoff from last season, and I thought Bergs is going to run through him. And frankly, for 2 hours and 50 minutes, I thought I was right. But we need to talk about what actually happened out there, because this wasn't just a loss for Bergs. It was a masterclass in how to lose a match while playing arguably better tennis. Let's be real. If you like rallies, you probably fell asleep. If you like aces, you were in heaven. We had triple Z versus double Z. And honestly, Bergs threw everything but the kitchen sink at him. The guy was hitting 180-kilometer serves on his second serve, mind you. That is obscene. He hit 18 aces to Zhang's 12. But here is where the savage truth comes in. Zizou Bergs, for all that firepower, choked when it mattered. It's that simple. Zhang didn't face a single break point the entire match. Not one. You can't hit 18 aces. You can strut around the court, but if you can't make your opponents uncomfortable on their serve, even once in 3 hours, that's a tactical failure. The turning point was painfully predictable. 5-all in the third set, tie break looming. Bergs, who has been untouchable, suddenly tightened up. He gets a look at a forehand and inside out, and he makes 99 times out of 100, and he sprays it. Game over. Zhang breaks, serves it out. Credit to Zhang, the guy missed 6 months of 2025. His ranking tanked. People wrote him off, myself included. And he just stood there like a wall. He absorbed Bergs' pace, waited for the one moment Bergs' mental game cracked, and he took it. That is a big match temperament. Bergs has the shots, but today he had the mental fortitude of a folding chair. The scoreline was Zhang defeating Bergs 6-7, 7-6, 7-5. Now, we're moving on to the doubles. Whoever said doubles was boring, seriously, if you turned the stream off after the singles, do yourself a favor, go back, find the replay, and watch the second set tiebreak, because what we just witnessed in Sydney was absolute chaos. First off, we have to talk again about Zhang. The man was playing like he was possessed by the spirit of a Grand Slam champion. His forehand was a weapon of mass destruction. I'm looking at the stats. He clocked a 187 kilometer per hour forehand winner. That is not a tennis shot. That's a felony. He was putting dents in the backboard. But for every ounce of brilliance from Zhang, we had a meltdown from Zizou Bergs. I tipped Bergs in the singles, and he let me down. In the doubles, he was even worse. He was trying to be the hero, going for glory on every shot and spraying errors all over New South Wales. The most savage part, he was getting out-rallied in forehand exchanges by Zhu Lin. No disrespect to Zhu, she played her role perfectly, but if you're an ATP player getting bullied off the court by a WTA 150 ranked player in a baseline slugfest, you probably need to look long in the mirror. And the drama, China is up 5-1 in the second set, cruising, and they decide to choke. They let Belgium all the way back in, and I thought they were done. Then came the dark arts. We had a very, let's call it, tactical toilet break from the Belgium right before the deciding super tie break. A little dodgy? Absolutely. Did it work? No. The Sydney crowd was going absolutely mental. Honestly, listening to the roar, you'd think this was played in Beijing. A big thank you to the Australian immigration policy for ensuring China basically has home court advantage every time they play down under. In the end, China takes the tie 2-1. Triple Z, or ZZZ, whatever you want to call him, was the MVP. The crowd was the X factor, and Bergs needs a cold shower and needs a new compass because he lost his way completely. Okay, now I've got that off my chest. We need to go to Perth, where France took on Swiss. And we're going to start with Belinda Bencic, who Zhang 6-2, 6-4. If you blinked during the first set, you probably missed Zhang's entire contribution to this match. Look, no disrespect to Zhang. She's a grinder, but this was just Belinda Bencic's day. She looked like she was running a paid coaching clinic out there. The scoreline was 6-2, 6-4, but let's be savage for a second. The only reason it was close is because Bencic got bored. She won 78% of first serve points, and get this, she won 23 of 29 points at the net. That is absurd. She wasn't just beating Zhang Zhizhen from the baseline, she was coming forward, taking the time away, and basically telling the French bench, is this the best you've got? Zhang Zhizhen dropped the first game, broke Bencic immediately, and for about 3 minutes, French fans had hope. Then Bencic woke up and realised who she was playing and never trailed again. Zhang Zhizhen is a solid player at the challenger level, but against a gold medalist and a top 15 talent, she looked lost. She had no weapons to hurt Belinda. It was just retrieve, short ball, Bencic winner, rinse and repeat. Switzerland takes the lead, and honestly, if France doesn't find a high gear in the men's singles, this tie is going to be over before dinner. Next, we're going over to the men's, where Stan Wawrinka defeated Arthur Ringding-Ditch 5-7, 7-6, 7-6. This match, absolute warfare. We were in the Perth oven, and it was brutal. 3 sets, I generally couldn't pick a winner. It was razor-thin margins for the entire game. Ringding-Ditch is a handful. Big serve, heavy ball, but Stan, we saw glimpses of the Stanimal today. That one-handed backhand is still the prettiest thing in sports. When he uncorks that down the line, it's simply poetry. But here's the tactical genius that won him the match. The block return. Ringding-Ditch was bombing serve, expecting 3 points. Stan just chipped them back, blocked them into play, and said, let's rally, kid. He neutralized the biggest weapon on the court and forced Ringding-Ditch to actually play tennis. And here's the most brutal stat of the day. The one that will keep Arthur awake at night. Ringding-Ditch actually won 5 more points in the match than Wawrinka. He literally played better on paper. But guess what? There are no participation trophies in the United Cup. You can win all the points you want, but if you don't win the big ones in the tie breaks, you're just a statistic. Stan knows how to win ugly. He knows how to suffer in the heat, and he stole this one right out of France's pocket. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, you beautiful Swiss legend. I really, really needed this one after the absolute disaster class I put on predicting the China tie. I was about 5 minutes away from retiring from the prediction game entirely. But Stan the man saved my reputation. Just. Now, we're going to get on to the previews. So, tomorrow we have Germany versus the Netherlands in Group F in Sydney. Let's look at Team Germany. Look, if you like drama, heart attacks, and marathon matches that ruin your sleep schedule, Team Germany is your squad. They are the zombies of the United Cup. You can't kill them. They just keep coming back. We all remember 2024 where they saved match points for fun and stole the trophy. But this is a slightly different beast in 2026. The formula, however, remains exactly the same. It is Alexander Zverev. He is the captain, the anchor, and frankly, the entire engine room. If Sasha plays well, Germany is a contender. If he gets distracted or passive, they are flying home economy class by Wednesday. But here's the unfiltered reality check. The Robin to Zverev's Batman has changed, and that is a massive gamble. In 2024, they had Angie Kerber. Sure, she was coming off maternity leave, but she had the aura of a champion. This year, they are banking on Eva Lees. Now, credit where credit's due. Lees has grinded her way into the top 40, and she's a fighter. But asking her to debut in a group that features Iga Swiatek, that is baptism by fire. The Germans have an elite safety net in the mixed doubles with Laura Sigmund and Kevin Krawitz. That's if Zverev ever steps aside. But make no mistake, this team is incredibly top-heavy. If Zverev gets tired from carrying the squad, the whole structure collapses. And I've made record of it, and I mentioned it in previous episodes. Team Germany is my team for this year. I think they will go all the way and win. Let's look at the Netherlands now. So if Germany is the blockbuster movie, the Netherlands is that indie film that critics love, but nobody actually goes to see. But don't sleep on them, because the squad is the definition of a banana skin team. They probably won't lift the trophy, but they are absolutely going to ruin someone else's week. They are led by Talon Griekspoor, who is basically the working man's tennis star. Solid, heavy hitter, and he keeps his head down. He's the kind of guy who can beat a top 10 player on Tuesday and then lose to a qualifier on a Wednesday, which makes him a nightmare for bettors. And trust me, I know. But here is the brutal truth. The Dutch are banking everything on chaos. Their number one woman is Suzanne Lamens, not Antrax Roos, which is a massive roll of the dice. Lamens had a breakout 2025, sure, but the United Cup lights are bright. However, and it is a big if, they can split the singles matches. They become arguably the most dangerous team in the tournament. Why? Because they have Demi Schuurs. She is a doubles wizard. She doesn't hit the ball, she casts spells on it. Not to mention the fact she has 21 doubles titles to her name. If the tie goes to a deciding mixed doubles, the Netherlands are the favourites against almost anyone. The problem is surviving the singles long enough to unleash her. So, with that being said, let's look at the matchups. We've got Eva Lees versus Suzanne Lamens. First up on day 3, we have a clash of the breakout stars, though one of them definitely has a higher ceiling than the other. So, the reality check is, let's look at the trajectory here. Eva Lees didn't just have a good 2025, she had a fairy tale. Remember the Australian Open last year? She got into the draw as a lucky loser because someone pulled out while she was literally on the physio table, and she turned that into a 4th round run. That is not just luck, that is seizing the moment by the throat. She plays high octane, first strike tennis. She takes the ball early. She's practically hitting it on the half volley. On the other side, you have Suzanne Lamens. Credit to her, she grinded away to that title in Osaka back in late 2024. And she's finally a top 60 player. But let's be honest, Lamens is a worker, and she's a counterpuncher who wants to turn this match into a cross-country 10K. She wants long rallies, she wants this to get bored and spray errors. Here's the problem for the Dutch. Sydney is fast. On these courts, fortune favours the brave, not the passive. Lees attacks, Lamens retrieves. If Eva is hitting her spots, Lamens is going to spend the entire afternoon running side to side, wondering why she can't get a good foothold in the point. Lees has the weapons to take the racket out of Lamens' hands. I'm back in the German. Lamens is solid, but solid doesn't beat spectacular on a quick hard court. Lees has the firepower, she loves the Australian conditions, and frankly, she's just a better ball striker. Lees in 2 tight sets. Next up, we have the heavyweight clash of the day, and if you're a Dutch fan, you might want to look away, turn off the podcast for a couple of minutes. We've got the world number 3, Alexander Zverev, taking on the Netherlands' Talon Griekspoor. On paper, this looks like a mismatch. Zverev leads the head-to-head 9-2. In most sports, that's not a rivalry. That's plain bullying. But here's the savage truth that the stats hide. Griekspoor is an absolute nightmare for Zverev. He doesn't just lose. He makes Zverev suffer for 4 hours before losing. We all remember that 5-set heart attack at Roland Garros where Talon was up a double break in the 5th, somehow managed to hand the match back to Sasha. That is a story of this matchup. Griekspoor pushes the rock up the hill and Zverev kicks it back down at the last second. Style-wise, it's the wall versus the gambler. Zverev is going to do what Zverev does. Stand 3 meters behind the baseline, serve bombs, and hit that backhand cross-court until the sun burns out. It's boring, but it's effective. Griekspoor, he has to redline in this game to stay alive. He has an underrated net game, but that's out of necessity. He has to come forward because he can't outgrind Zverev from the back. So, my recommendation. Zverev loves the Australian furnace. He's built for these conditions. Griekspoor will come out swinging. He'll probably drag Sasha into a tiebreak, and he might even steal a set if Zverev decides to take a nap mid-match. But when it gets to crunch time, Zverev's serve is like a cheat code, and Griekspoor's forehand tends to find the bottom of the net. Zverev wins, but it's going to be an ugly, sweaty 3 setup. So, moving on now to China versus Canada in Group B. If you think Team China is just happy to be here, think again. They aren't just riding a wave of momentum after that thriller against Belgium. They are surfing a tsunami of home support. The Sydney crowd has effectively turned the Ken Rosewell Arena into a fortress for them, and the players are feeding off it. Zhang is walking around like he owns the place because right now, well, he kind of does. And the team chemistry is electric. They have already survived the do-or-die super tiebreak, which means the nerves are gone. They are loose, they are dangerous, and they are looking at Canada not as a threat, but as lunch. Now, let's talk about the Great White North. Team Canada is fascinating because they are basically a science experiment in youth versus expectation. Leading the charge is Felix Auger-Aliassime, who is serving as playing captain. We know the Felix story. Incredible athlete, world-class human being, but occasionally prone to vanishing when the pressure gets suffocating. He's coming off a 50-win season in 2025, sitting at world number 5. so the pedigree is there, but being captain adds a different kind of weight. He doesn't just have to win matches, he has to be the emotional anchor for a very young squad. But the real headline here isn't Felix, it's Victoria Mboko. If you haven't been paying attention, you might be asking, where is Layla? Where is Bianca? Forget them for a second. Mboko is the real deal. She started last year outside the top 300. It is now sitting at world number 18. That is huge. She's 19. She hits the ball with absolute violence and she has zero scar tissue. She doesn't know she's supposed to be nervous. Canada is banking on a youthful ignorance and Felix's experience. It's a high risk, high reward strategy, but if they click, they are arguably the most explosive team in Group B. So let's get into the matchups. First up, we have a matchup I like to call the future versus the furniture. We've got the 19-year-old phenom Victoria Mboko, or Moko, as the locker room is calling her, making her the United Cup debut against the veteran Zhu Lin. If you missed the 2025 season because you were living under a rock, here's the update. Moko is the truth. She started last year ranked outside the top 300, basically playing on park courts and finished at world number 18. She won the Canadian Open at home as a teenager. That is not normal. That is star power. Her game is violent. She moves like Coco Gauff, but hits with the weight of a freight train. Then you have Zhu Lin. Look, Zhu is a solid pro. She hits a very flat, very clean ball, but against an athlete like Moko, she's going to look like she's moving in slow motion. Zhu's game relies on rhythm and standing there and trading blows. That works against most players. It does not work against a teenager who can run down everything and then blast the winner from 3 meters behind the baseline. The only question here is nerves. This is Moko's debut. The jersey weighs heavy, but honestly, Zhu lacks the defensive variety to make Moko uncomfortable. If Zhu hits it flat, it just sits up for Moko's strike zone. It's like a feeding steak to a lion. Zhu might hang around for a few games while Moko shakes off the adrenaline, but once the Canadian finds her range, it's going to be ugly fast. Moko in straight sets for me. And finally, we have the main event, the blockbuster. We have Captain Canada himself, Felix Auger-Aliassime, stepping out to face the man of the hour, Zhang. Felix is back, baby. He finished 2025 like a house on fire. Final in Paris, semis at the ATP finals, back in the top 5. He looks scary good. He's the captain. He loves Sydney. And he is theoretically the adult in the room for this Canadian squad. But the problem, Felix hasn't hit a ball in anger yet this year. Zhang has. We just watched Zhang survive a 3-hour war against Bergs and then play a doubles match where he was hitting forehands that broke the sound barrier. Zhang is match tough. His shoulder looks fine. His confidence is sky high. And he has the Sydney crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. Style-wise, this is going to be loud. Big serves, big forehands, short points. Felix is the better mover and he's the better defender. On paper, he should suffocate Zhang by extending the rallies and waiting for the unforced error. But we know Felix. We know that sometimes when he wears that captain's armband, feels a little too tight, the double faults start creeping in. If Zhang starts blasting winners early, does Felix stay calm? Or does 2023 Felix make a guest appearance? Call me crazy, call me a glutton for punishment. I underestimated Zhang against Bergs and I won't do it again. Felix might be rusty in his first match of the season and Zhang is already redlining. I am officially on the ZZZ train. I think he rides the wave, frustrates the Canadian captain and pulls off the upset in 3 chaotic sets. Now, we're moving on here to Great Britain versus Japan. We're going to Perth. If there is one team that walks the line between dark horse and national embarrassment every single year, it's Great Britain. But folks, looking at the 2026 squad, I think we finally have a team that isn't just relying on Andy Murray's metal hip or even Dan Evans' anger management. If you don't know Billy Harris, get to know him. The guy spent years living in a converted van, driving around Europe, playing futures events for spare change. He is the definition of earning it the hard way. He is a big lad, huge serves, loves a 1-2 punch, but let's be real. Swapping Draper for Harris is like swapping a Ferrari for a very reliable, very hardworking Ford Transit van. Now, the pressure shifts entirely to Emma Raducanu, the enigma herself. We never know which Emma is going to show up. Is it the US Open champion who paints the lines and moves like a gazelle, or is it the version that sprays 40 unforced errors and calls a trainer after 3 games? With Bolter out, Raducanu isn't just a bonus, she is the entire franchise. If she plays well, Great Britain has a pulse. If she doesn't, poor Billie Harris may as well drive the van back to the airport. This team is a total coin flip. So, let's move on to the first match. We have Billie Harris versus Shintaro Mochizuki. Billie Harris is the definition of a late bloomer. The man is 30 years old, 6'4", and spent most of his career literally living in a Ford Transit van, driving around Europe to play for peanuts. He has grinded his way to the top 130 the hard way. He's big, he's physical, and he plays what I call meat and potatoes tennis. Big serve, big forehand, no nonsense. On the other side, you have Shintaro Mochizuki, who's basically his polar opposite. He's 22, former junior Wimbledon champ, and about 5'9" on a good day. Basically, this is simple. Harris is going to try to bully him. He wants to hit through Mochizuki and keep the points short. Mochizuki wants to turn this into a track meet and make the big man run in the heats. It's a 50-50 toss-up for me, but I like Harris. He's used to the struggle, and his serve is a massive weapon on these fast courts. Mochizuki can get overpowered, and I think Van Life Harris takes this one. All right, moving on now to the women's, and now the main event, the blockbuster, the one the marketing team has been drooling over for 6 months. We have the battle of the brands, Emma Raducanu versus Naomi Osaka. If you want to talk about pressure, expectation, and magazine covers, these two are the undisputed queens. Let's look at the history books, specifically the recent ones. They played once before in this new era back in Washington, D.C. in July 25. Raducanu absolutely dusted her, 6'4", 6'2". She moved Naomi around like a piece of furniture and exposed the movement. Naomi Osaka, world number 16, is supposedly back. We saw the resurgence last year, US Open semis, Montreal final. And when she cares, her serve is a missile. She's won the Australian Open twice. She owns these courts. Emma Raducanu, world number 29, is finally, wait for it, healthy. She's back in top 30. She's added some pop to the serve, and she's playing that aggressive line-painting tennis that made her a superstar for 3 weeks in 21. Tactically, it's simple. Naomi wants to stand in the middle and hit the ball so hard it bursts. Emma wants to stand on the baseline, take the ball early, and rob Naomi of time. If Emma can get Naomi running, Naomi collapses. If Naomi gets a short ball, Emma dies. Well, not literally, still out. But here's my unfiltered savage truth. I don't like this matchup. In fact, I don't really like either of them personally. Not that I know them personally, I just don't like them. You have one player who treats tennis like a side hustle to a fashion empire, and the other who treats press conferences like therapy sessions. Honestly, I hope they both lose. But since the rules of tennis say someone has to win, I'm going to have to go with Raducanu in 3 sets. She has a psychological edge from Washington, and frankly, Osaka's body language yesterday versus Sakari was so bad, I wouldn't trust her to beat a qualifier. Hell, I reckon I could beat her. Now, let's move on. Italy versus Switzerland. Team Italy is riding a massive wave of momentum following their 2025 dominance in team competitions and secured both the Davis Cup and the Billie Jean King Cup titles. Their primary strength lies in top-flight tennis singles duo Jasmine Paolini, world number 8, who has become the national hero with her relentless speed and tenacity, and rising star Flavio Caboli, fearless baseline, aggressive player who thrives under pressure. The team's tactical X factor is undoubtedly their doubles depth, led by the legendary Sara Errani, which makes them nearly impossible to beat if a tie goes to a deciding mixed doubles match. However, their main weakness could be their sheer weight of expectation. As the team to beat in Group C, the pressure to maintain Italy's golden era of tennis is immense, and any dip in Caboli's sometimes streaky consistency could leave him vulnerable against the veteran experience of Switzerland. Now, transitioning from that Italian powerhouse, we have to look at who's waiting for them. Switzerland. As we speak, the Swiss are literally on court finishing off France. They just snagged the first set in the deciding doubles. So make no mistake, Switzerland is warm. They are battle-tested. They've felt the balls. They've found their range in these conditions. But here is the danger. Italy is coming in fresh, while the Swiss have been out there sweating in the Perth heat for 6 hours. The Italians have been resting, hydrating, and watching every single point from the comfort of the air conditioning. It's rhythm versus rest. So let's look at the chess match on the card. This is a marquee match. We have world number 8, Jasmine Paolini, taking on Belinda Bencic. Tactically, this is the dynamite versus the timing. Paolini is literally the Energizer Bunny with a forehand that defies physics. Footwork is elite. Everywhere at once. Bencic is the opposite. She is a time robber. She stands right on top of the baseline, takes the ball so early she's practically volleying it, and uses your own pace to kill you. Here is the spice. Bencic leads the head-to-head 2-1, but Paolini beat her right here at the United Cup last year. That matters. Paolini knows she can hurt Bencic on these courts. Also, remember what I said, Bencic played today. She might be warm, but Paolini is fresh. If Paolini drags this into a physical dogfight and makes the rallies go 10, 12, 15 shots, Bencic's legs are going to feel very heavy, very fast. If Bencic finds the rhythm instantly, she can blow anyone off the court. But Paolini is just too reliable in these team formats. She's going to make it ugly, she's going to make it physical, and I think she's going to grind out a win for Italy. And to wrap up the day, we have a match that is basically a sociology experiment. The young gun versus the old guard. It's the 23-year-old Flavio Cobolli taking on the 40-year-old icon Stan Wawrinka. Let's be real. Stan Wawrinka is on his farewell tour. We love him. He's a legend. But the man is literally old enough to be Flavio's dad. And context is everything here. Stan just went through a 3-set meat grinder against Randy Nash earlier. His legs have miles on them. Now he has to step out against Cobolli. That's just cruel. Cobolli is 23. He's hungry and he runs like a golden retriever who just saw a tennis ball for the first time. They've played once before, Shanghai late in 2024, and it was a slugfest. Cobolli won. That matters because the kid isn't intimidating. He doesn't see Stan, the man 3-time slam champion. He sees a guy he's already beaten who moves a half step slower than he used to. Cobolli plays high-risk, high-reward tennis. He hits a massive ball and he loves a fast court. Stan still has the Stanimal knockout power. That backhand is still a weapon of mass destruction. But in the Perth heat, against a kid 17 years younger than you, that's a brutal ask. If Stan tries to rally with him, he's dead. Stan needs to end points in 3 shots or less, but I don't think he can do it in 2 hours. Cobolli's speed is going to kill him. Expect high quality for a set and then watch the youth take over. Cobolli wins and Stan takes an ice bath for 3 days. So what do you guys think? Does Stan have enough gas in the tank to teach the kid a lesson, or are we watching the end of an era in real time? More importantly, in the battle of the brands between Emma and Naomi, will we actually get a tennis match or just a really expensive unforced error count? Let me know on X at Talkn Tennis. That's a wrap for our Day 2 review and Day 3 preview. I'll be back tomorrow to unpack the madness and see if my Zizou train prediction stays on the tracks or crashes like my Bergs tip. Until then, enjoy the tennis and we'll talk tomorrow.